You must be careful about the words you use, or the words you allow to be used in your house. Words are things. You must be careful. Careful about calling people out of their names, using racial pejoratives and sexual pejoratives and all that ignorance. Don't do that.
It's time to talk about it.
Pull up a chair and take a seat.
We're serving up recipes for life.
With Hampton University's Dr. Richard Mason and Dr. Tamara Williams.
Welcome to the Sunday Brunch.
This is Dr. Tamara Williams.
And this is Dr. Richard Mason. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Brunch with the Good Doctors. It's so good to be back at this table once again.
It's always good to dine with you.
Listen.
Life is so busy, but it's always nice that we get to stop every weekend. Just catch up.
And eat.
Eat, for sure. For sure. Nourish our bodies and our minds all at the same time. And our spirits, just,
Exactly.
It's good company. It's good energy.
Oh, yes.
We can't always control the energy we get surrounded with. We try our best.
Hey,
we try our best. But it's
listen.
nice when you can invite good energy too.
Listen,
Yeah.
you can invite the demons in
I don't want them.
just like you can put them out. You understand?
I rebuke them in the whole name of Jesus.
Hey, I learned a long time ago that my peace is more important to me, and I protect my peace.
I do too.
You understand?
I do too.
And when folks are impeding upon my peace, I remove myself or ask them to exit from my presence.
Immediately.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I learned a long time ago to rid myself of those toxic relationships and people in my life, and when relationships become toxic, it's okay.
To let it go.
Exactly. My cutoff game is good. Real good.
That's why we twins. That's one thing we have in common. One thing that we can dine and we have never had an argument because there's a lot of things we agree upon. And that is one thing we agree upon. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And either you're going to make adjustments, so you're going to fix the problem, or you're going to change how you feel about it. And one thing we're not going to change how we feel about is being disrespected and having bad energy and toxic people in our lives.
There you go. Exactly. Because one of the things I realized a long time ago, I can't control people. I can only control how I respond.
That's what I learned.
Okay? That's it.
That's it.
I teach you how to talk to me. I teach you how to treat me.
And
if
people treat you how you allow
there
them
you
to
go.
treat
If you can't adjust yourself accordingly, it's okay. But just know that I'm going to adjust myself.
As the kids say, period.
And that's on period.
Period. Look, you're not even supposed to be talking yet. We didn't even introduce you yet. You going to chop on your biscuit.
Right.
Let me
Well,
Look, you know why she wants to talk to us. Because, what we're talking about is what she loves so much, which is self-care. So we're going to get to her real soon.
right. She's just chomping at the bit, y'all. Y'all should see her moving up close to, she getting closer to the mic every day.
Yes.
I'm ear hustling.
Yes. And, that's why we invite certain people to the table to have certain conversations that are necessary. Because a lot of times when you're sitting with your family, people think that just because they're family that you have to tolerate them or tolerate aspects about them. But we are advocates always of mental health and mental wellness. And mental wellness also means being very much aware of how other people trigger you and those things that you can do for yourself.
Exactly. And you have to pay attention to your own mental health. Because guess what? Sometimes other people don't care. They're more concerned about getting their needs met, getting their point across.
That is all they are concerned about in most cases.
And so you have to be mindful of what their motives are. And that's why, once again, you have to be very much aware of yourself so that you can practice your own personal self-care.
We know that a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Not at all. Well, I'm gonna tell you, mine is about to get fed because I'm gonna head on over to that buffet.
Listen, you already know.
I got you covered.
You already know what I want.
I got you covered. Your biscuit and a little honey butter.
That's all I need, just a little bit.
I got you.
And Listen, if you see some bacon,
Oh, you know I'm
You
gonna see the
already
bacon.
know.
I already got the signal. See, they kind of let me know when the bacon is ready. So that's why I'm leaving you right now. So I'll be back.
I know at some point we're going to be going to some other restaurants. I know at some point we're going to be dining in some other places, but I hope they have some bacon too.
Oh, it's a must. We check the menu before we select. All right.
Okay, deal. So before we run out of time, because it seems like we never have enough time, I'm glad we get to meet every week. But before we run out of time, let's really get into this topic about self-care. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking with someone who specializes in that area, who's done some great work in that area, understands the need for that work, but at the same time, we're going to be very realistic in our expectations. A lot of us talk about things. It's really hard to be about those things. And so always at this table as doctors, we say, physician, heal ourselves. Heal ourselves. And so we don't really talk about it. We talk about it, but we try to walk in that. And that's really hard. But usually that's where the good work comes from. That's where you see that need. I think with our students, we teach research. We talk about the best types of research answers the questions that you are very much interested in having answered.
Oh, yeah.
Very much. That keeps you like very much tuned in because you're like, I need to know this. And so you never get bored doing that type of work because it's answering some good work. So we want to welcome to the table Dr. Goodar. She's also new to Hampton University.
Yes, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This great Sunday.
Don't be acting shy now. You know,
Oh, I'm not. I was just waiting my turn to jump in. You know.
right? Talking about hello, everyone. No,
Yes.
no, that's not her voice.
Hello, everyone. You know, I gotta get my girl
No,
6
no,
voice
no.
going.
They just got out of church.
You know, I still got that. You know, that evening voice going. You know?
All right.
She's from Chicago. She's trying to do that. Nah, boo.
The whispers in the dark.
Right. I was going to say, this ain't the quiet storm. That's coming on a little bit later.
Come on now.
Oh, let me get my teacher voice going. Let me bring that out.
There you go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Goodar.
Yes. Listen, so we're going to talk to you a little bit about the self-care and how you got into that. But I
Yeah.
liked how when you said, let me get my teacher voice. Hi, everybody, I'm Dr. Goodar. Because if you notice, you went into like an elementary age voice, right? And now we teach college. So she's just now coming into teaching college students. But I wanted you to notice that you went back
my
to your natural
K-12
thing.
teacher
Yes.
voice is going to always be strong.
She's like,
That's home base.
Yes. And also, our good co-host is that good chair. So he works with a lot of those youth. So I'm sure he picked up on that little voice.
Oh,
too.
yes. Exactly.
Well, good.
Yes. Well, welcome to the table.
Yes,
Thank you for
welcome.
inviting me to the table.
Yes. I am so happy for us to get this good food from you today, too. This
I'm glad to
good
provide.
meal. Yes, about self-care. Tell us how you got interested in the topic just by itself.
So for me, take you back to maybe like 2018. And that was my 10th year of teaching. I'm a teacher by trade before this Hampton thing came along. I was K-12 in Chicago Public Schools, and I taught special education. So my 10th year, I started getting a little antsy and like wanting to do something different. And there was a lot of things going on in my life personally. I was dealing with infertility. I was dealing with teacher burnout, and it was just a lot going on. And so a friend of mine, actually a soror of mine, was doing great work in community psychology, and she started a not-for-profit. She was able to write a book, and I was just like, all of these things are not like traditional psychologists. Like, she didn't give traditional psychology. And actually, all of this during that time and dealing with infertility, it took a toll on me mentally, and I had to take a step back from teaching. I had to get into a group therapy and just kind of reset. I actually ended up going to the hospital because of my mental health, and it was because I had like a sort of intervention from my family. They saw that I wasn't sleeping. They saw that I was just running on fumes every day, and the trope of that strong black woman archetype made it where I didn't feel safe to say that I needed help. And so
it was your family.
It was my family that was asking.
Like, yeah, you're saying you're okay, but we see you're not.
You're not. And I was like, I'm fine. As a black woman,
had your cape on.
I had my cape on and wasn't taking it off. So
and you meant that.
with all 10 toes down. I meant that.
You was going down.
I was that's where I was at.
Yeah.
So I allowed that stereotype to make me believe that it wasn't safe for me to say that I needed help. So
Or that you're less of a woman if you're not able to.
That part. And it was a lot of,
yeah.
I did feel less than a woman actually, because dealing with infertility as a black woman, we're taught that that's not something that we deal with.
When you have people who have multiple kids.
It's 1 in 8. I think it's 1 in 8 that deal with infertility. But my mother had 4 kids. Her mother had 4. My great grandmother had 10. So I didn't expect, to deal with infertility. So I did feel like less than a woman. I had to have a hysterectomy, and that made me really feel like less than a woman.
Look, we didn't even invite you to talk about that today,
Just
but
saying.
that is a real conversation.
It's a real issue
that people
because
should talk about at the table, about when you can't live up to what somebody has defined as what your role should be, what you've idolized probably since you were a child. Little girls grow up playing mommy with dolls, and then
Absolutely.
if you're successful in every kind of way, and then you're hitting this, bumping up against this place. There's so many people who actually go through infertility issues.
And I really couldn't get my mind around it. I really couldn't get my head around it. My family really didn't know how to process that. My ex-husband at the time, he did not know how to process that, and it really took a toll on our relationship because I was in one space.
You had a hysterectomy while you were married with him.
I did, yes. And it was a really hard decision because I had been dealing with 3 rounds of infertility. And that 3rd round, when I was having my period for 20 days out the month, it was like, okay, I think I need to go ahead and do what I need to do for me and not really be planning for a child that I don't know, that doesn't exist. I have to focus on the baby I do have and just really...
So you already had a child
at
that point.
And from a previous relationship, I have a daughter.
Did your husband have...
No.
Okay.
And so we were trying to do the whole blended family thing, and I felt like I had checked all the boxes. I had went to college, I had the kid, I had the good career, I had the husband, had the house, and I was like, check, check, check. So it's time to solidify our family and have a child together. And honestly, first he was having infertility issues, and then he had a procedure done that corrected that, and then it was my turn to have a procedure, and my procedure just wasn't successful. We tried 3 rounds of IVF, and none of them were successful. And so I got connected with Fertility for Colored Girls, which is a phenomenal national organization. I think they have a chapter in Richmond, but it's a national organization that supports Black women who are dealing with infertility issues, whether you are looking for a surrogate, or you're looking to do IVF or insemination, or whatever your journey looks like. It's similar to where we are here, sitting at the table. We all come together to share resources, talk about what we tell the insurance people, all of the things that that white people really have access to very freely and fluidly, but in our community is very few and far between with folks who know that information. And that's when I started really caring about my wellness. It was after I got divorced, because it was a lot. Both of us were in a space where we weren't able to support one another with our issues. We kind of had grown apart. I knew that he wanted children. I knew I couldn't provide that. It was just like, we just gonna stop right here. So, but also in dealing with all of the mental health issues, I felt like I needed something more. So I started my community psych program. I really wanted to know what happened to me. I really wanted to understand why was it
after being hospitalized?
This was after being hospitalized.
Well, did the divorce happen before or after hospitalization?
The divorce happened after hospitalization.
Okay.
During the doctorate.
While you were
my first class.
Wow.
I walked in the class and said, "Look, everybody, I'm divorced," and they said, "Yay!" They said, "Yay!" I said, "Look, everybody, I'm divorced," and my cohort said, "Yay!" I said, "Yay!" because I was stressed, and then I wasn't.
Well, sometimes the doctoral program will bring about a divorce. Sometimes,
but he didn't make it to that part. He didn't make it that far. So, but he stopped. It was literally my first class, and we had just went to court and got everything.
I don't even know how y'all had bonded as a class that first. You like the first class.
But see, my school was really good about making us get together. Like we was 12 in, 12 out. It was that type of situation. So we had already came, and everybody had also shared some other personal things that were going on.
So you guys knew each other even before class started.
Absolutely.
So they knew that
they
you
made
were
the
stressed.
space for us. So I was going through it in summer. All throughout the whole summer, and then when September came, when the semester started, is when it was finalized. So then, I had this kind of cloud over me. My family kind of was looking at me like, is she still quote unquote crazy? Like, is she back to herself or what? And I was like, I got something for y'all, and I got something for me. I'm gonna do this for me, but I hope you see that you shouldn't be counting me out. So I went to school. I went for community psychology, and at first I wanted to look at childhood sexual abuse and the impacts of self-care, like how do you engage in self-care as a survivor of CSA. But I found that it was really triggering to look through the research and the literature on childhood sexual abuse, and I found that it was also just a branch on the tree of trauma and the traumatic events that people who look like us deal with. So I said, why not just look at self-care and look at Black women in particular, and just look at the ways that Black women struggle with engaging in expanding their capacity for self-care in their workplace, in their relationships with their family, with their kids.
Not feeling worthy, not feeling that it's necessary.
Right, not understanding self-love and
putting everybody
barely accepting yourself, like all of the things. And it just changed my whole outlook on research and how, we collect research. I did an observer participant approach to my research. So I actually was a participant in the study, but my training as a teacher made it where I didn't skew my data. I was able to collect the data and then share my experience with my participants after they shared with me. And I was able to come up with some areas of self-care that actually help to expand your process and your engagement in self-care. And I came up with 3 areas that I want Black women to kind of stay away from. So I've been on the road with that show, and I'm here at Hampton. We have a self-care research lab at Hampton now. They just wrote their first grant,
Awesome.
So I'm excited about that. And I still do a lot of work with teachers and talk about teacher burnout, and I use photo voice as a way to better understand these concepts.
Before you jump past that, you have to give people at least one of those things that they should. Yeah, like you just can't say, I have 3 things Black women should stay away from. You got to tell them at least one.
So, okay.
Well, even back up, because one of the things you said earlier, and that kind of made me understand that you had an understanding of trauma, because you said first, I need to understand what happened to me.
Yes.
And oftentimes we get caught up in, why are people acting a certain way? Why are you like this? Why are you doing this? And we keep asking why versus the what. And that's very important in understanding trauma. So that's very eye-opening.
So I think what changed the entire game for me was, having my family shut me down and make me go to get help. So there was that. And it was more of a Band-Aid on a bullet wound kind of situation, because that's when I was diagnosed with PTSD. And that's when I really realized that everything that I had experienced in childhood, experienced in my adolescence, my early adulthood, had been piling up under a rug that I refused to acknowledge. So that rug had that big lump of dirt under there, and I just kept walking around it and acting as if it didn't.
Refusing to be a victim.
Exactly, because I just felt like, we move on, we bury it. I was taught to bury the things that bother me. So it wasn't until, I had no choice when I was sitting down for that hysterectomy and was home, in my mind, I was teaching. It was my 10th year. I was like, I'm just going to be out for a couple weeks. I'm just going to have the surgery and I'm going to come right back, be right back with my babies, and that's going to be that. But I healed physically, but mentally, that people need to do more research on the implications of a hysterectomy on mental wellness and how much
even
it uproots and on your hormones,
Just
because
not work,
it brings up a lot.
Yeah, just that alone.
So that little girl that was hurt, as a 6-year-old child, the girl that was hurt as a 15-year-old child, those girls were waiting to confront me when that hysterectomy happened. When my womb was uprooted and removed, it brought up all of that trauma that I had left under that rug. So the
All the way back
triage,
to 6 and 5.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The reason why you were not able to have kids, essentially.
The reasons why I wasn't able to have kids, also thinking about myself as a kid, thinking about the lack of protection that I had as a child that caused me to be harmed. That made me actually be overprotective of my own child. All of those things
Say something
came up.
right there. Those traumas do come back and relive in different ways.
They do. And so I did the group thing, and it really just helped me understand what I was dealing with. But when I started going to one-on-one therapy with my therapist, her name is Queenie. Shout out to Queenie because she's bomb. But starting to go to therapy one-on-one, and I just had my 5th year anniversary back in February, so I'm almost on year 6. Doing things like EDMR, doing therapy like that, and just having to talk therapy and having a safe space with a Black woman who looked like me, who understood some of the cultural nuances that I had to navigate through motherhood, through adolescence, my young adult life. Just having that safe space to have those conversations really empowered me. And so it just supported everything that I was doing in school. It helped me to understand what happened to me because I was doing the work and in therapy myself.
You see how it applied.
Yes, in our community, and just I tried
you did it to yourself first.
Yes, I was the first patient, patient 0.
Yeah.
So once
that's what research does for people.
It
so
does.
That gave you a deeper love because you're like, now I need to know more about myself.
And I want to share it. I wanted to share it with the women that were closest to me, which is predominantly teachers, that I worked with. I'm still really close with the teachers that, I was in school, that I worked at the school with. And a lot of them were participants in my research because they wanted to understand what helped and what hurt their self-care. So you had asked about the areas. I have 5 areas that, support self-care, and I have 3 that kind of make it where it's harder to engage in self-care. So one that helps, one area that came up that really helps us to engage and expand our capacity for self-care is understanding resistance. And you and I have had conversations about resistance and how to be, sometimes you have to be more gentle with your resistance in a professional space because of the hierarchies that are in place. But just gentle resistance goes a long way, silent resistance, any type of resistance where you can pull back space and time for self is an area that you want to increase in your life. Another area that I encourage Black women to engage more in to expand their self-care capacity is to think about their desires. Because a lot of times Black women, we think of desire as something that's a luxury, that's not for us, that's something that we only see in our dreams. So
you can get to that after you've done all
after you check the boxes, then you can look at things that you really desire. Like that's, so for some women, it's like, oh, a desire. It's like almost taboo, for especially, I'm millennial, but like my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation, like they desire is like, we going to work. We going to church. Like it's nothing to do with desire. So those would be
used to putting other things first,
prioritizing.
It's not about what you want.
Right. You put your husband first. You put your kids first. You put the
help
church
obligation
first.
is what that's called.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of us struggle with help obligations in the Black community, specifically Black women, because we serve
show up for everyone.
We do, but we don't show up for ourselves.
That part.
We're last.
Other people don't show up for us specifically as well.
Black women show up for Black women, though.
But other people, we show up. If you go to other places that have rallies or whatever, you'll see Black women in other rallies or places. They've learned to show up for other people. But if you look at things specifically for Black women, you won't always succeed.
It's not reciprocated. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So struggles, as far as struggles, internal criticism, like that intrinsic criticism that we have been kind of indoctrinated to kind of put on ourselves is a huge barrier to engaging in self-care. And the external judgment is another area that Black women struggle with.
People will think differently of me if I'm relaxing.
My mother-in-law,
relaxing.
my mother-in-law judging me because I'm not raising the kids how she raised her son, or my boss is judging me because I'm not looking the part, or I made them embarrassed, or I'm not doing. My pastor is judging me because of the length of my skirt. Like
I'm not tithing.
Whatever. I'm keeping my coin in my pocket. So now you mad at me.
10%, y'all. She done jumped to the 10%,
I'm struggling,
y'all.
yeah. But they see you took a day off of work. They be like, you ain't.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but it's about not asking permission, right? It's about like not asking that permission. Can you do and just doing what you need to do for yourself and
Putting your
prioritizing
mask
you.
on 1st.
Yeah, and it seems so easy because we fly places and we hear that little speech, but when it's really time to put your mask on 1st, most of the time we would give it to our kids. Most of the time we give it to our mama.
Will go to sleep hungry before they will allow their children to
And
go
I've
to
done
sleep.
it. I've done it.
That's
I'm gonna be
real talk.
honest. I've done it where all right, we got these 4 pieces of chicken. I'm gonna give you 2, and even though I'm still hungry, I really wanted 3. But I'm gonna go on and let you keep that. I'm gonna give you the extra biscuit because I want my baby's belly to be full before mine. And I saw my mother do it. My grandmother did it. So it's almost expected, right? After 3-4 generations, it's an expectation.
Well, let me ask you this, because what happens to the mother who, maybe a single mother, whether it's through divorce, whether it's through being a widow, maybe it's just being a single mother, having a child out of wedlock. She has 2 or 3 kids, and she's working every day, coming home, making sure the kids have something to eat, making sure that they're doing their homework, making sure that they're in extracurricular activities, and she's burning herself out. How do you expect that mother to really take time for herself when all of these things are happening? What would you say to that mother if she was sitting at the table with us?
So I actually had a mother like that in my study. I had a participant who was the mom of 6 children, and she was an employee at the school that we were all working at, and she was that mom. She was a single mother, but she was one of those super moms that had all her babies in sports, had all the babies in dance. Most of them went to school where she worked at, so that helped with, the caretaking. But she was exhausted because after school, she got to take the youngest one, she got to take Junior to football practice. And then after she takes Junior to football practice, she got to come home and bake cookies for the bake sale. And she participated in my study, and I do a photo voice. I'm a photo voice researcher. She submitted a picture of a plate, right? And it was one of those styrofoam plates that you get on Sunday, like after church. And it had like shrimp. It was just like fried different foods on there. And she was like, "This is dinner." And my family judges me because I'm providing dinner that's not home cooked. But because of my obligations to my children and to work, this is all that I have. Like this is all I'm able to do today. And she had to learn to just accept that sometimes dinner go be at JJ Fish. Sometimes dinner go be.
I've had JJ Fish. It ain't bad.
Hey, I'm
Harold's
from Chicago,
Chicken,
so
too. You understand?
I am. I don't know who JJ is,
JJ,
but obviously the
you should
fish.
get to know JJ now.
The fish is good because y'all should have seen.
It's pretty good.
Dr. Williams just sit up when you said JJ Fish.
So,
Even though we got food right here, good food.
Hey, as a Chicagoan, you can't get better than Harold's. You can't get better.
Honey, with that mild sauce, please. Thank you, and please.
Now, I do know about Harold's. I do know about Harold's Chicken, but JJ
Everybody
Fish.
pretty know it. It's one of those other chains that we have, and I've seen it in other places too. But fried foods, we know it's not healthy, but we also know that we need to eat.
But it's
and we
so
need
good.
It's fine, but we need to eat. But this mom,
a little batter.
what I would tell that mom though
It's like
is
chicken
to
seat here.
Yeah.
I would tell that mom that she needs to be able to resist, and she also needs to be able to take time and not really ask for permission for time for herself. Her kids had a range. Like I think her kids were as old as 15 at the time, and as young as like 4. And I remember I'm the oldest. My mother has 3 of her own. My father had 3 with his wife, and so but I was the oldest out of both of those groups. And I just remember being the like surrogate mother, if you will, to my siblings. And I think sometimes that can be a bit extreme, with us putting that role onto our babies.
Yeah, I'm not an advocate for.
I'm not an advocate for that.
But I hear where you're going. Like, you can make a deal with them where it benefits both of y'all. Where
Yeah,
you can make an
exactly.
exchange. So you might get paid for this, or you might get this type of benefit if you can give mommy. Watch them for about 30 minutes a day.
The 30-minute mark is all that mom should really be asking of their older
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
I don't think, don't leave the babies, overnight.
Yeah.
Don't take no trip to Vegas. I'm coming from, public
Now,
schools.
some people do
Had to
things
call
like
the
that,
people like, ma'am, you can't leave your kids for 2 days and go to Vegas. You can't do
to
that.
see Usher.
I gotta call the people and let them know.
Right.
But definitely finding other folks to fill those shoes for you, and getting comfortable with asking for help. Like, we're not comfortable asking for help because we constantly get let down. We ask and then somebody tell us no, and it's like, forget it, I'm just gonna do it myself anyway.
We don't like rejection.
We don't do well with that. So I think that mom, she really needs to understand how to kind of delegate some of those tasks, and of course give the children responsibilities, even if they're not taking care of each other, taking care of self, and teaching the children independence and how to help with the household duties, so that she can steal 30 minutes or an hour to go take a walk, or go be by the water, or
take a bath,
have a glass
Eat
of wine,
hot food.
good food, exactly, something nourishing. So you have to steal that time, if you will, and you got to kind of take it, snatch it unapologetically, and not asking permission, more like asking for forgiveness.
And see, I've had mothers that come in, and that's one of the things that I look at as they are demonstrating signs of burnout, explaining to them, hey, you need time for self. And of course, they talk about their children, putting their children first, and helping them to understand that by putting themselves first in certain areas is really helping them to put their children first. Because if you are at a place where you're burnt out, fall into a depression, maybe need to be hospitalized, guess what? Who's going to be there for your kids?
Right.
And sometimes that's one of the hardest struggles for them to do. And I've had mothers come in with so many different excuses. Oh, well, I have to cook. My child has special needs. This, that, and the other, and so on and so forth, or whatever.
Be something.
And that's the mindset. It's always going to be something. But if you prioritize yourself and put in there 30 minutes, whether it's going to be a bath, like you said, whether you just want to sit in silence and lock your bedroom door.
Let me tell you about my closet.
I love nothingness.
Nobody is invited. You understand?
I love being in.
Knock on it. The light is not even invited sometimes. Jesus is always welcome. But there's things that you have to have a space that's just for you. When you're a person that gives, you don't always receive well. That's what I know too. It's not just asking, but sometimes Black women
reject the help.
We don't receive help well. Because what you trying to say? You trying to say I need your help?
You trying to say I'm weak?
You trying to say I can't handle this?
You saying I'm weak. And being weak is absolutely taboo in our community. But to your point, I was going to say, we set an example for our children for how they're going to act when they become adults. So if you're not resting and you are constantly giving until you have nothing left for yourself, then what do you think your children are going to do when they have children of their own?
And what will they expect of their mate?
Exactly. They won't expect partnership. They won't expect collaboration and teamwork. They're going to expect that person to just be able to sit.
A superwoman.
They're going to expect one person to be super and the other person to just complement that. And that's not real relationship. That's not real partnership. So I think that setting that example, I was going to say also, when I was dealing with all of my mental health trauma and trauma from this hysterectomy, all of the things, and did the hospitalization, the hardest part about being in the hospital was knowing that I was away from my daughter. And it actually motivated me, but it also broke my heart because I wasn't there to be there to explain to her what was going on with me. And I had like a Scarlett O'Hara moment,
control the narrative of what was being said and
about me. Yes. And it was just like, and I just had that Scarlett O'Hara, God is my witness kind of moment. Like, if someone tells me that someone that I know loves me tells me that I need help, I need to believe them. I need to listen to them, because I can't have the loss of control that I had being put in a facility and put in a hospital.
That felt like rock bottom.
Oh, it was absolutely rock bottom for me. And I felt like all of my rights were stripped away. I felt like a prisoner. There were other patients that were there because there was something going on with my insurance that I think it was because of the neighborhood I lived in, that I still live in back in Chicago. It's considered a low income community. So when I went to the hospital, they took me to the nearest hospital, which is an F-rated hospital nationwide, and my aunt, who God bless her, she was really trying to help me get into a Betty Ford type facility, and they wasn't having it coming from that particular hospital. They sent me to a hospital that was for folks who didn't have insurance, and I was sharing a room with a person who identified as a sex worker. And I was like, dang, how I get here? I got a master's degree, I got all of these accolades, but I'm still in the same place with this woman who works the street.
Let's take a pause right there. That mental health does not have a description of
It
what
doesn't.
it looks
discriminate.
like.
It doesn't.
does
I learned that lesson.
Discriminate.
Nope.
It can happen to anybody.
Yep.
It's not necessarily where you come from. That
And I
will
learned
not
that
always
lesson.
dictate where you end. And
It
then
didn't.
also let's talk about how sexual assault and childhood trauma does not discriminate.
It doesn't.
And so you don't. The very way that you ended up in with the masters, she could have very much had sexual trauma as a child and ended up on the street. But y'all both ended up in the same
place at the
because
same
you had
time.
the same type of trauma.
Yep, and had to be friends because we were sleeping right next to each other. It's like, hey, friend, what we talking about at group today? Like,
Right.
It was
You
a
heard some
really
stories.
horrific. Like, it was
Yes.
horrific, but also, like I said, it was like, I bet you I won't no more. I bet I won't be here no more because
You're gonna do whatever necessary,
whatever
work
I
is
needed
there.
to do. And that's when I started to really prioritize self-care and specifically therapy because I just didn't want to end up in a situation like that again. So therapy is a constant in my life. We talked about how hard it is to practice self-care. I'm human. So no, my self-care practice is not perfect, but I do look at it and I do revisit it quarterly. I look at it daily. I look at it on different cycles because I want to know how I'm doing. I set a goal to leave work. And then I fall off a little bit, so I got to revisit that. So my fiance is my accountability partner when it comes to rest, because I do struggle still with sleeping. You know, I'm one of those people who get like the mad scientist at night. I have
Yes.
all of these ideas I want to
I
write.
promise you, everybody at this table could talk to you.
Oh my
about
God, it's terrible.
how you could record your thoughts at night. The
Could.
things that, what?
Can't get to
keep
sleep.
you
I can't slow it down. Now I'm watching this
Yes.
show Black Cake, and oh my God, I had to stay up and watch the episodes. I'm grading papers. I'm doing all the things, and
Trying to be a superwoman again. All
and I
those
feel
things,
those
yes.
little habits creeping back since I've been here
Come
in
on
VA.
now, say so.
And so I'm just like, oh, it's time to revisit my goals. You know, it's
Right.
time to revisit
And
my
boundaries.
and my boundaries because being a new person, you know, at a new job, you want to do a good job, right?
Right.
You want to be a resource and asset to your colleagues, to whoever needs you, but not at the expense of my health, not at
That's
the
right.
expense of my wellness.
And you want to be able to maintain where you are.
Exactly.
So this is not a sprint. It's a marathon.
It's definitely a marathon.
So you have
Definitely.
to be, whatever you come in, you have to be able to continue at that pace or get better than that. And so if you start sprinting off, you don't know how long you're going to be able to maintain that. It takes a lot of stamina to do that specifically. That's where the burnout comes out.
That is where the burnout comes in. And I think that I'm learning that it's okay to accept that you can't do everything.
Yes.
Like,
And
it's
you
okay
can't
to
be
accept
everything
that.
to everybody.
And won't. And that's okay.
And that's a hard lesson for some people to accept because they feel like just because they can do something, they should.
Exactly.
Just because
Just
you
'cause you
can,
can
it
doesn't
does
mean
not
you
mean that you should.
Exactly.
And a lot
Yeah.
of people will use you then for whatever their purpose is. And they will
And to
use
get their
and their
needs met.
energy to get whatever their needs are met because you will continue to say yes because you can. But that does not mean that you should. Because as soon as you start saying no, you will find out how those people really feel about you.
Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
In a whole fast hurry.
But you know what, though?
Because you no longer serve their purpose. So you end up being, like one of my mentors told me a long time ago, you end up being that iPad that holds up the window when you shouldn't even use a book for that.
Right.
But you know what, though? Something that comes up when you say that is the discomfort. And I worked on this with my therapist many times because it was a very stressful environment that I came from. And
I can imagine.
oh my God, it was during the pandemic, teaching during that thing. Oh my gosh, it was teaching during the pandemic and being innovative in education and trying to keep, the students with diverse needs engaged through a device
Special
while they at home.
And yes, indeed.
It was a hot mess.
When
But we
those
worked through
parents
it.
needed that time.
And
for
I'm
you to be
seeing
working with
parents
them,
in their
yes.
drawers
Oh, no.
in the background, and I'm just like, please tell
Be
your mama to
thankful
put her
some of them
drawers
had
on,
drawers
put her
on.
pants on,
Right.
because I don't want to expose the other kids to what your mama got going on.
Right.
Or we seeing, drinks and blunts, all the
Yes.
things.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that it's one of those things where you have to sit with it, because when you tell someone no, for me, I'm gonna be honest with me, I was a kid, as a teenager, as a young child, I was very much looking for the approval of my parents. And as an oldest child, I really wanted to be the good kid. I really wanted to be an asset to my parents, help them out with all the kids they created, and my cousins and all of them too.
You
and
take on other people's
taking
responsibilities.
taking it on.
It seems to be your history.
And it carried all the way to my professional, being not a yes woman, but definitely hard to say no. I wouldn't say no.
Because you can, you think you should.
And
Right.
I did. And did. But I'm learning that I can sit with the discomfort of saying no.
Of disappointing others.
Of disappointing others. And there's a physical response that my body has when I say no.
And you
I
can
feel
see
the
it
angst.
on their face. You can see it in
I
their
get this.
body.
I get
Yeah.
uncomfortable. When I say no, I get uncomfortable because at a young age, I was taught that I shouldn't say no. Right? I wasn't protected. So it carried. It carried. So it's now, when I say no now, I'm learning about all the different ways you can say no. I think there's a book on that.
It's a complete sentence. Nope.
No is a complete
There's
sentence.
no
Look,
comma.
no,
Right.
nope, nah,
It does not.
Let me get back to you. Sorry, I can't right now.
And no doesn't even really require explanation. Other people will ask you why, but me telling
I
you
said
why
what I
means
said.
nothing compared to the fact that let's go back to the original part of this sentence, the whole sentence, which was
No.
Exactly.
And so people sometimes think they can talk you out of that by asking follow-up questions. But now you're taking up even more of my time because I've already said no. No is going to have to work for you right now. And sometimes people, they're very uncomfortable with that. And as women who put on those capes, we care about how other people perceive that and how they feel about that too. And you imagine how it feels when you're told no. And so you don't want to think about making somebody else feel uncomfortable, but you've got to.
But that's a part of self-care, because
got
one of
to.
the things you have to look at on the job, in your personal life or whatever, you have so many balls that you can hold up in the air.
And juggle.
And when someone asks you to do something else, whether it's at work, whether it's in a relationship or whatever, you want to make sure that you are able to deliver. And I find myself now recognizing that, and it took years to get to that place, but recognizing the fact that when I'm asked to do something, my mindset is either within me or either to the person that's making the ask. If they're involved with any of those other balls in the air, I have to let them know. At some point, one of these balls will fall if I insert this ball into the mix. Which one of these balls are you okay with me pulling out of the mix for the time being? Because something has to change. And if I can't do it for myself, if it's something that I am putting on myself, I have to make that decision. Okay, right now is not the time for me to do this because I need to pick this one up. So let me put this on the shelf. And I have to be okay with putting that on the shelf. And so anytime
And
that
dealing
I'm
with
working
the
with someone else,
consequences or the fallback of that, absolutely.
that's it. This ball has to be put on the shelf. And that's being realistic, because the reality is we want to make sure that whatever we say we can deliver, we do, and not find ourselves down the road saying, oh, I know you asked me to do that, but I had so many other things to do and I couldn't deliver it by this date. That's something that we have to really look at up
Quality.
front. Exactly.
I was thinking about what you said, Dr. Williams, about when you say no and how other people respond to that, or how other people try to manipulate, that explanation of your no, that full sentence. And I think it has a lot to do with the stereotype that Black women, Black folks in general, have been dealing with for centuries, of that expectation of that we're lazy, right? So when we say no, or when we say no, we think that maybe folks will perceive us as being lazy.
Like, I don't want to do the work.
Right. I don't want to do, I don't feel like it, you know, and I don't, I think that that's something I still struggle with is I don't want people to feel like they think that I'm lazy,
And learning that you're not responsible for other people's perceptions of you.
That
Because
part.
you can't control that.
And then, also something else that comes up, Brene Brown and her work on shame and how shame is a tool that we use very, very heavily in the Black community.
Especially narcissistic people.
Especially narcissists. And they know how to use and manipulate shame and put that cloak over you so that you feel obligated to remove it. You feel you want to get it off of you. You want to get that ick off of you. So you end up compliant or giving in to the whatever the request is because somehow shame has become a tool that is used against you. So I'm learning about how to resist. Shame resilience is what Brene Brown calls it. And being resilient to folks' attempts to use shame as a tool against me.
Yeah, that's not going to work for me. I'm gonna need. I don't eat that kind of pie. It doesn't work. You go. That's your share right over there. I guess as a clinician, I see it coming. Sometimes you see it before other people see it, and sometimes people unconsciously are trying to use these things. It doesn't always mean that they're intentionally trying to do it. Sometimes that's just a part of their personality, how they operate, and they're accustomed to people responding in certain
and
type
giving
of
them
ways
what they want,
and giving. That's how they move in the world. And so when they bump up against people who are like, nope, not today, then they respond in a certain way. So if you have an issue, even dealing with conflict because of what that looks like, and then if you were assaulted as a child, those type of things happen. People telling you don't tell anybody.
The secrecy.
The secrecies of things, and the expectations of being responsible of what will happen if you do this. If you tell, then they don't want you and they'll get rid of you.
No one will believe you.
And all these type of things. And so you start to feel like you don't have a voice.
And you also feel like you can't trust yourself.
Right.
You feel
and
like
you're responsible for how other people may feel about a situation.
Exactly.
And so now people have overstepped their boundaries. So now you don't even know where your boundaries exist.
you don't have them.
You're looking
Right.
for them because people have overstepped them. So now you overstep other people's boundaries. And you have to check all of that. Mental health matters.
It does.
And it comes out in so many different ways.
The behaviors, they definitely show up and show out. So I think that, I'm learning to take a step back and just kind of, the other thing that comes up is that a lot of folks manipulate the idea of their urgencies, right? Like some fire has come up, and I need you to put this fire out.
Well, you don't see no smoke.
You don't see no smoke.
In life, there are some people that run around with their hair on fire all the time.
And it becomes whose problem?
Yours.
Somehow it becomes my
Whoever
problem, right?
Whoever they can manipulate into feeling bad or being worried about that situation.
Right.
But they're never the ones taking responsibility of the situation. It's always, there's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire. They're pointing to the fires, but they're never running in to save nobody.
Exactly. Yeah.
I learned a long time ago, the reality is, let me phrase this correctly.
Okay.
All right?
Because we
You
are
laugh.
alive.
Listen. Poor preparation on your part doesn't make it an emergency on my part.
Yes. Your
And so-
lack of planning does not
Exactly.
constitute an emergency for me.
Exactly, because one of the things I've recognized with all of the things that I have going on, I have to be able to put things in a place, okay? Put things on a calendar, and I prioritize those things,
Say
okay?
so.
And so when others don't do the same and they come up with something, hey, we need XYZ, it's like, okay, I can work this in. That's not a problem. And sometimes I'm able to do certain things, but I have to be real with people sometimes and say, listen, if I'm going to do this, then this is going to take a back seat. And that's the reality. It's almost like budgeting, okay?
It's
you
boundaries.
can't overextend your finances
budgeting.
when you don't have it. You have to budget time the same exact way. And oftentimes there are people who are constantly doing those types of things
Taking out withdrawals,
have no
but no
respect for
deposits.
your
No
time.
deposits.
Exactly. No respect for your time.
No reciprocity.
And you really have to look at it. That's what self-care is all about. Respect my time, respect my energy. I can give you everything you want and need, but you've got to respect my time. You've got to respect my efforts and energy.
It's teaching other people how to treat you.
Yeah.
By treating yourself that way first.
Yeah.
That's self-care. The things that you wish for other people, take
Turn
the
it
time
around
to
and
wish it
put it on yourself. That's real. But how many times have you had a conversation with someone like a friend and you give them the best advice and then you end up in that situation and you don't treat yourself with the same kindness and the same compassion that you did for your friend who was in a similar situation?
We're always more critical on ourselves than we are on
Hypercritical,
others.
absolutely.
Than others, but we have to be more aware, more conscious of those things,
Yes.
and stop. And we do need to give ourselves grace. Perfection has never been required, but action is.
It doesn't
So
even
you got-
exist.
That part, but a lot of times people won't get started because they think they have to be perfect or everything has to be outlined. We still have to make that effort and make the work.
And another thing that comes up for me is, in thinking about the demands of, professions and a family, I've learned that I'm empathic, that I'm definitely an empath, and a lot of times I take on others' emotions. So boundaries is really important for me because I will, I'm that
You're
person
not going to
that's
tell somebody no because you're going to feel bad that they
exactly,
feel. Girl,
and
no.
a lot of times people manipulate that, right?
They
They
smell it
absolutely
on you.
smell that on me, and
They
just
see
like,
your energy and they're like, oh, she'll do it.
she's kind, and it's like, I'm kind, but don't take it for weakness. Don't take it as I don't have a spine, or manipulate me into doing things that you should be doing. So I'm learning through therapy, through just reflection, that as an empath, I have to set stronger boundaries to make sure that I'm protecting myself, right? So yeah, it's
all
not
your
easy.
areas, because what you do in one area, you start to see that happen in other areas. So as you start to implement that, you'll start to see that build up in all the other areas.
Absolutely,
Yeah, exactly. Because those relationships extend not just from work, but also at home, at church, a lot of other places. And people will somewhat try to make you feel bad because you may not have the time or the energy to devote to something that they feel is more important. And that's always a problem.
That shame is a tool.
Exactly. And sometimes,
I just don't want to.
right.
And that's never okay, right? Like,
but it is, and I want the people out there to really understand that that's okay. Because somebody else has set a goal does not mean that necessarily has to be your goal. Success doesn't look the same for everybody. Everybody at this table is called doctor, but we don't have our doctorate degree in the same thing. But we're sitting at the same table. You don't have to do the same thing that everybody has done to get to the same places that people have gone. But you have to be able to accept that.
and that part, the acceptance part, is where some people struggle, because some people don't know the word no, and understand and accept the word no. And you should be able to accept that someone doesn't want to.
We can go all the way back
Consent.
to how we were forced to eat food as kids. Finish all the food on your
plate.
You have
big
to,
and strong.
you
Yeah,
have to
right.
eat
Now I'm
that.
just big.
People in Africa, they would tell you whatever they had to say to get you to eat that food. But you stop understanding that you have boundaries. Like, I don't want that.
And I should be able to get rid of it.
Exactly. And be able to say no. And see, I've picked up my man Eric Mays' nope every time. Nope, not going to do it. Nope.
I'm more of
I may say nothing, because two things I'm not going to do is go back and forth. I can show you way better than I can tell you. My actions will tell you no faster than I will sometimes. And it's you're like, you still talking? I'm already gone.
I need to take a page from that book.
It's her eyes. I'm going to tell you, her eyes will give you the answer before she walk away from you. I'm going to tell you, I done seen it. I'm going to tell you.
Look, he knows. I will give you the look and keep it moving. Let Jesus and you have a conversation about what that meant. Because we have to stop thinking we owe people things that we don't owe them. Because
But people
that's
are
what
entitled.
Right.
And that's not my real concern. Like when I'm off the clock, I tell people I get paid to help people. I get paid to deal with certain things when I'm off the clock. Sometimes you don't want to do that. And so it's okay to say no. You still have to have balance and boundaries. You can't stay in the dark all the time. You got to have some time in the light.
And you can't pour from an empty cup.
Never in
So
life.
if you get paid to help people and then you get off work and you're no longer getting paid and you still helping people, where is that energy for yourself, for your baby, for your family? Like, you don't have it because you're still pouring. and your cup is empty
And
and
people
dry.
don't check on the strong people.
No,
The
check
people
on your
that
strong
help-
friends.
The
Yes.
people who help people often don't get helped.
Exactly.
And they don't know where to find the help. Those are the people who you look at them, and you ask people say, oh yeah, that's my friend. That's my friend. You ask them, they will not name any of those individuals that as a friend because they can't contact those people. They can't depend on those people. People always just depend on them.
Exactly. But that gets back to the three things you said earlier. Step back, reset, and get some therapy.
Therapy is definitely key. It saved me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for it.
And that itself is self-care.
Exactly.
Therapy itself is self-care. It's a responsibility to yourself. It's
Absolutely.
the best gift you can give yourself.
I'm happy now. I mean, I can honestly say I'm in a really joyful place, a really exciting place in my life. I'm doing work that I love, and I don't feel the burnout like I was when I was still teaching because I feel like I'm pouring into students who really want to make a difference in the world, who really want to be excellent, who really want to push themselves. And I am teaching them about the power of boundaries and the power of resistance, gentle resistance, cold hard resistance, whatever we need in order to make that space for ourselves and be well.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, we've had a great time at the table. I'm going to tell you, I've enjoyed this bacon. I've enjoyed this conversation. And self-care for me is going to get me another plate of bacon before we get up out of here. But
You already know I want some.
listen.
Oh, can I have some too?
You
We'll
can.
share.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I'm Dr. Richard Mason.
I'm Dr. Tamara Williams.
Thank you for joining us right here at WHOB Smooth 88.1.
The essence of HU.
Keep you forward.
Someday we'll be able to measure the power of words. I think they are things. I think they get on the walls. They get in your wallpaper. They get in your rugs, in your upholstery, in your clothes, and finally into you.
Thank you for joining us at the table.
Tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. for more delicious topical recipes for life on the Sunday Brunch.
On Smooth 88.1 WHOV.